This is the Spycraft 101 podcast. Welcome to your clandestine classroom. This is episode number 166 of the Spycraft 101 podcast. My guest for today is Vladimir McMillin. Vlad was born in Moscow and worked for 20 years for the TASS Russian news agency as a sports reporter. He immigrated to the United States in 1990 and has lived here since then. At a very young age, Vlad realized that there was something different about his family because they were the only family named McMillin in all of Russia. Vlad's father was James McMillin, a former U.S. Army NCO stationed at the American Embassy in Moscow in the late 1940s. At the end of his tour, rather than come home, he decided to defect and remained in Moscow with his new wife. Vlad was born 2 years later. I invited Vlad onto the podcast to discuss his book, Stationed in Moscow for Good, A Tale of Love and Peril in the Cold War, which was published in 2013. It's the story of his father's service at the U.S. Embassy, his shocking decision to defect, and how he created a new family and built a life for himself in the Soviet Union. It's also the story of just what it cost him to never be able to go home again. But before we dive into this story, I want to say a big thank you to everyone listening who is also supporting me on Patreon, including Jesse G. and Mason S. Your monthly contributions there help me keep this podcast going week in and week out. As a way of thanking my patrons, I offer a lot of great freebies and promotions, including free and discounted books and products from the Spycraft 101 store. Patrons also get exclusive access to long-form articles of mine that aren't available anywhere else. If you haven't signed up for my Patreon yet, but you want to, just click the link in the show notes on whatever podcast platform you're listening to right now. Vlad, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You know, in the past, I've interviewed 2 Soviet citizens who defected to the U.S., but I've never had the opportunity to learn from anyone what it means when an American defected to the USSR. So I was very excited to learn about your family's life and now to kind of help share that story with my listeners as well.
Okay.
So can you tell me, to start off with, how old were you when you learned that there was something kind of unique about your parents, about your father?
Probably when I was like about 3-4 years old, because, we got a bunch of presents from the United States, like toys. I got toys. I got a lot of children's books. That was like surprising for not only for me, but for my friends too. So that's why I started to be interested why this is happening.
Okay. I see. Yeah, I bet the kids were amazed at some of the stuff that was coming in the mail
Oh yeah.
from you.
Oh
I
yeah.
think you said you had, in the book, you said you had like what was it, like a little fire truck or something that you could ride
Yeah.
in? I don't remember exactly. A pedal car, maybe?
Pedal car.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. When I was riding pedal car, about 50 people followed me in our neighborhood.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was really surprising. But why I got this presents from my grandfather and grandmother? Only because of KGB, they let my father communicate with his dad and mother. That was one of, I think, of his requests to KGB, that he could, because it was a very close family. My dad, his sister, and their mom and dad. So KGB let it be.
That's very surprising to me, but very fortunate. And I'm sure that helped your father and it helped his family back home as well deal with this complete change in all of their lives.
Yeah, because the very interesting that we lived in the apartment in Moscow, and this apartment was like little America. It was all in American books, English books, all in posters connected with, for example, with the singers and actors from Hollywood. And all the books and magazines were also there. So I was surrounded by only, like, it was like a little America inside our apartment.
Wow, wow, wow. I bet that was completely different than your neighbors and the kids at school and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because whenever I got out of my apartment, it was absolutely different world.
I'll bet. So, since you mentioned outside of the apartment, what were things different for your family outside as well, like having a nicer car or job or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. Yeah, they got immediately. My dad got a present also from KGB, as they were connected with KGB all the time, and he got a new car, a Russian car. This apartment also was like a present. It was a three-room apartment. Most of the people in Russia live in, how would you say that, in the apartments where it was one room belongs to one person, another room belongs to another family, the third room belongs to the third family. So it was only one bathroom for everybody. Sometimes it was like five, six, 7 room apartments, and there was like about 20 people living in this apartment.
Oh my gosh.
Different, yeah. It
My
was
gosh.
it was awful, yeah. But we immediately had a separate apartment, 3-room apartment. That was,
Hmm.
yeah. I grew up in a absolutely different atmosphere than all the Russian kids live.
Wow. Did that lead to any problems? Were there other kids that did not like you for that reason?
Yeah, there were problems because I'm really a very friendly guy, and I invited a lot of my friends when I was a kid to play with the toys that came from America. And sometimes I noticed that they disappear. They were stealing these toys from me.
Wow.
I was really upset about it.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
Yeah,
I do have some sympathy for those kids. It was probably a treasure for them
yeah,
after that, though.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was crying because of that, but my mom explained to me that exactly what you said.
Yeah. Yep. Understandable. So you mentioned your mother. Can you tell me a little bit about her? What her life was like before she met your father?
Also, very interesting life because her father was a also from KGB officer, and my grandfather. But he died very early. I don't remember really him. He
Hmm.
died in 1951 when he was like 45, 46 years old. I really don't know exactly what happened to him, why he died so early, but they said that it was a heart problem or something. But she grew up in this military family, and my grandfather, her father, he was at war. Her brother, my mom's brother, also was at war all the time, all 4 years of war.
Hmm.
That was her. Yeah, she grew up with her mom, actually, with her mom, but she worked in the factory. They were making some kind of military stuff, military clothes. She was a young girl, so she wanted to live a good life.
Oh, sure. Of course.
Yeah, that's
So
what
was
I
her
wrote.
life a little bit better growing up because her father was an intelligence officer, or was it also very difficult for them like everyone else?
No, it was easy for them because of that. Because I think she never told me that, but I think she was connected with KGB also before she met my dad. I think so. She never told me that, but
Hmm.
actually I figured it out because as I wrote in the book, there was American house in Moscow where soldiers were resting, where soldiers were have their, like, like musical thing. They were dancing and they invited Russian girls, and of course the Russian girls were connected with KGB.
Yeah, yeah. I had read
Okay.
about that in a
Yeah.
different book
Hmm.
before I read yours, but it
Hmm.
certainly makes sense. And I guess the America House was just where all the young men from the embassy live. It was like a dormitory or something like
Yeah,
that for the
exactly.
American men. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
no surprise that a lot of girls would like to meet them and that the KGB would want to know who
Yeah,
was meeting who, of course.
yeah. Oh.
So was she invited to go to the America House by someone, or was she encouraged to go to the America House at some point?
As she told me a lot of stuff, but how to believe it or not, but she told me that she met her friend, a girl who already went there to the American House, and she invited her. But maybe, I don't know, maybe she was sent there. I don't know. That's that's the thing that she never told me.
Right, right, right. Well, from reading your book, I know that if they were not paying attention to her before, they were certainly paying attention to her after the first time that she went to America House, right?
Yeah, right. But she also probably didn't want to tell me more secrets about her previous life.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that. Not the kind of thing that you would share with your son at any
Yeah,
point, even when he's grown, certainly. But so we do know though that your mother visited, and as you said, she was very beautiful young woman at the
yeah,
time. So once she got to the America House, I guess a lot of guys were
yeah,
wanting to dance with her and that sort of thing, right? How did she
yeah.
ended up meeting your father?
She ended up, before, as in the book, I wrote it in the book, before she was dating another guy, and she got actually married to him, another American soldier. But as American authorities, found out about it, they sent him immediately out of the country.
Hmm.
And I think at that moment she was already working for KGB. They sent her to get some information from that guy, but she failed. And so they found out another guy, my dad, who was a cryptographer, and he knew all the codes.
Hmm.
And they sent her to meet him. She told me at first, she didn't like him very much because he was very shy. He was very shy. He never danced. He never, because she liked to dance, but he was always standing, like she said, in the corner, just looking how everybody were enjoying themselves dancing. So,
Hmm.
but she was actually pointed to this guy, to my dad.
Okay, I see. So the KGB, they knew who he was,
Yeah,
and they told your mother, "Go meet this
yeah,
man, no
yeah,
matter what." I guess, right?
yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
your
right.
assignment.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think that this is something that she could not refuse to do? I mean, it seems to me that
Yeah.
if they want you to do something, you pretty much have to do it, right?
No, yeah, no, she cannot refuse. Nothing can be refused, which is proposed by KGB, because actually she would be sent to prison or to Siberia or whatever.
Right, right.
Hmm.
Well, considering her father was also in the organization, do you think that she was, happy to help, so to speak, or was this something that she was uneasy about to begin with?
I think her marriage to the American soldier, to the American guy, was one of the reason of his heart attack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was because the whole of his life, he was a KGB officer, and then suddenly this happened.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have another book published by I think Oklahoma Publishing House, something like that, but they ran out of business. This book was also on Amazon, but you cannot buy it. But in this book, particularly in the second book, I wrote a story about myself, how I was dating a girl, and later I found out that her father was a KGB officer, and he also forbid her to date me, or
Hmm.
else he would lose the job. So that's why one of the reasons why I thought that my grandfather died of heart attack.
I see.
I think because of that.
I
Hmm.
see. Interesting. Because
Yeah,
I mean, your father was he contributed a lot to the Soviet Union, but he was
yeah,
still an American no matter what, I guess. Was that the
yeah,
reason that he
yeah,
didn't want that girl dating you?
yeah,
I see.
yeah.
That's unfortunate. That has nothing to do with you. You had no control over any of that,
No,
but it still has an effect on
yeah,
your life.
Yeah, its effect on her life and on the life of her father.
Hmm.
You know, yeah,
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but that it was certainly the system. Like once they make a decision, you have to go along with it, even
yeah,
if you don't want to.
yeah, exactly.
So she met your. You said that she did not really like your father, but I got the impression that he liked her quite a bit right
Yeah,
away.
he liked her very much. Yeah.
So did he have to keep that relationship secret, or was he telling everybody at the embassy that he had met Galia?
No, she approached him. She approached him. She invited him to dance, but first he refused. But then he started like she was teaching him how to dance. That's how they got together. She was a very communication was her best part. She
Hmm.
could communicate with everyone. So that's why it was easy for her to get in touch with my dad.
Right. I think she had to start learning English as quickly as possible, but and
Yeah.
he had to learn Russian later on, of course.
Oh
But
yeah.
they
Yeah.
still made it
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. He was learning Russian because they sent him to the institute. Well, that's like college. They sent him to technical college because he's a technical guy. He was a technical
Hmm.
guy, and he needed to learn Russian to be in the school.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah.
So clearly, it was not a problem for girls to go to the America House, but it was a big problem for the previous soldier to get married without letting anyone know. So, was your
That,
father able to
yeah.
kind of date her openly, or did he have to keep things secret when he saw her outside?
No, they were dating openly because they were followed by KGB all the time.
Mm.
That's why they let it happen openly.
Oh, of course, of
And
course.
he didn't know that, but she knew it exactly that she was followed by
Right, right, right.
KGB. So
What about his American commanders? Did they try to prevent any of this or tell him to stop or anything like that that you know of?
he never told them about it. That's where he was in a secret situation that he met her somewhere in Moscow, went, didn't let them know about it. And of course,
Okay.
because of the other guy whom she first met, he told the authorities that he was dating a Russian girl. Not only dating, as they said, he was married to her.
Hmm.
That's why they sent him immediately back to the United States.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Understandable. You definitely can't get married first and then ask
Yeah,
permission second.
and in Russia at that time, it was forbidden to date American or to get married to
Mm.
American. It was forbidden. It was like you were sent to prison because of that. Because we know exactly, not her friend, but she knew that woman. She was very famous woman. She was an actress,
Oh,
and
right, right.
yeah, I wrote about it in the book.
Yeah, I
And
can't
she was,
remember her name right now, but I did read that
yeah,
story. That was pretty wild. Yeah, she also had a relationship with an American there at the embassy.
yeah, and he was sent back to the United States, and she went to prison, and she was in prison for 10 years.
Hmm.
But she got birth to the girl was born by this American, and the girl then she went to the United States to visit him, and she stayed in the United States.
Yeah, that was a story I had never heard before until I read it in your book. But he
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that he had a daughter in Russia until for like 27 years or something
Yeah,
like that. Right?
yeah,
She was an
yeah,
adult when he found
yeah,
out about her. That's
yeah,
incredible.
exactly. Yeah.
Incredible story.
Mm-hmm.
So things worked out slightly differently for your father and your mother, of course. How
Yeah,
long were they dating before he made the decision that he didn't want to go back home without her?
that was an interesting story because he, as I wrote in the book, he didn't know that he won't go to the United States. He wanted to go with her,
Hmm.
and he was dating her like for maybe a year,
Oh, okay.
from 1947, I think, to 1948. That's when he got married to her. But
Okay.
he bought, even as I wrote in the book, he bought a ticket to the United States. 2 tickets. And only at the last moment he found out that he would never go anywhere. He would stay in Moscow.
Right. That's unfortunate, but that was the plan all along, at least for the KGB,
Yeah.
was not to let Galia go, but to keep
Yeah.
your father James there.
Yeah.
So how did he learn that? How did he learn that Galia would not be able to go home with him, but that he could stay with her if he wanted to?
Probably in the last days when they were preparing to leave, he was preparing to leave. All his suitcases were ready. She said that we're not going anywhere abroad. We'll stay in Moscow. She told him that.
Mm,
Yeah.
man.
And then he got she said, they got a taxi in the morning, and everybody thought that they're living together to the United States, but they went to a separate place in Moscow.
Right. That was perfectly timed. It seemed, of course, with KGB assistance, but
Yeah,
it helped give a little bit of time before the embassy realized that something was wrong,
yeah,
because they
yeah,
thought he had left to go to the airport and he had not. Or not the
yeah,
airport, the port. I think he was going to go back on a ship, wasn't he?
yeah. They tried to find him. They thought that he was kidnapped,
Hmm.
that they were trying to find him for some time. But then he wrote a letter to the United States Embassy that he's staying in Moscow.
So did he stay only because of his love for your mother, or was he offered money, or had he decided that he liked Russia as a
No,
country, or all of those reasons perhaps?
no, I think because of my mother. He was a young guy, like 20, how old is he? 21-year-old,
Hmm.
20-year-old, 21-year-old. At that time, your head is spinning.
Sure, of course.
And if you met a girl, a beautiful girl, you want to stay with her. And
Yep.
that's what happened.
Yeah, plenty of young guys have made very bad decisions
Yeah,
in
he
those
was out
circumstances.
of politics at that time. But, that's happened.
Yeah, I understand. So he decided that he was going to stay for her. Did he understand what he would have to do in order to stay, or did that come later after it was,
No,
too
later,
late
of
for him to go
course.
home?
Later, later. The thing is also very strange to me that, as I wrote in the book, he gave the codes to the KGB, all the
Hmm.
codes that he was working with. So that was one of the probably reasons why they appreciated his not only mother, not only love, but also that he gave these codes.
Of course, of course. Did he simply pick up some papers out of the
Yeah,
embassy and walk out without being stopped?
yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay, I was wondering about that, and I saw in the book you mentioned that these codes, of course, they were very, very useful at the time, and I
Hmm.
think that they were able to read messages not just from Moscow, but from other American embassies
Yeah,
as
they
well, right?
were communicating. Yeah, absolutely right. Because they were communicating throughout the world.
Do you know how long that they had that? My thought was it was probably only a few days at most before the codes were changed, but
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
don't know.
A few days, because they thought that he was kidnapped and they didn't know that he took the codes.
Right, right. I got you. Did he ever say anything, or what do you think that he thought about having to give away this information to the Soviet government? Did he do it only because he had to, or was he willing to for Galia,
Well,
or what?
yeah, he never talked to me about it. He never. It was like taboo in
Mm,
our family. Yeah, he never talked to me. Only once, already like several years ago, when he was still alive, I found some newspaper, Russian newspaper. It was actually before I wrote this book, before 1 year before I wrote this book. And I found newspaper, Russian newspaper, where they wrote about his life in Russia. So I wanted to take this paper, but he noticed that I'm keeping that paper, and he was so upset. And I told him that I want to write a book about it. and he said that, what do you want to write about? Some defector? He still considered himself defector, a bad guy.
Oh,
Even
really?
after all these years. Yeah,
Hmm. Okay, so he felt guilt over what he had done
yeah,
all that time?
yeah. I think he was. Yeah,
Wow, okay. I see. Yeah, it was difficult for me to understand in the book because you talk about his actions and everything, of course, but you can't peer into his mind, so it's a little bit hard to understand
yeah.
his
That's
thoughts,
absolutely.
of
Yeah,
course, because
yeah,
it was like you said, it was a taboo subject for your family. So
yeah. I talked only to mom. Mom was telling me all the stories, but not him.
I see,
He
I
never
see.
he never talked about it.
Okay, so the first few days are, I'm sure they're very hectic and they're very intense for he and your mother, right? What happened exactly? They got married right away, really
Yeah,
quickly, and did they move into an
yeah,
apartment together, or they have to go into hiding a
yeah.
little bit?
They were hiding in one apartment for some time, and then after everything settled down, they got an apartment, a different apartment, their own apartment. But I still remember how two guys from KGB was always at our doors, like 24 hours a day.
Hmm. Okay, this is years later. Then clearly, since you were born in 1950, right?
1949.
Oh, 1949. Okay, I see. I see. So yeah, for years he had security afterwards, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I still remember. Like, it was not for a long time, but I was like 3, 4 years old,
Okay.
and they were still there. Hmm.
So you mentioned that he was able to communicate with his parents. So
Yeah.
how did that start? Did he just send a letter home through the post office, or did the Russian government, the Soviet government, share information about your father at some point?
No, I think first he talked to the KGB because he had these guys who were always, once a week they came to our house, to our apartment, and they checked everything. And I think he talked to them about that he wants to write letters to his mom and dad, and they let him do that.
Okay, I see. I guess that they probably read the letters before they were
Oh
sent,
yeah, of course,
I
of
assume.
course,
And
of course, of course they read.
do you know if they searched those packages that came to you, for example?
Yes, of course, it
Yeah, that makes
was
sense.
all upside down. Yeah, upside down. When I was grew up in, I think in my 20s. Yeah, when I was like 22 years old, I was at the college, at the university. We were sent to work with a foreign tourist, and I met a girl from Sweden because my second language was Swedish,
Hmm.
and I met a girl from Sweden, and we started. I heard this song, this song. It's called "I Got a Friend" from James Taylor.
Huh.
I got a friend. And so I wrote letter to BBC, listener's choice, and asked them to play this song for my friend in Sweden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then my mom called me and showed me this letter and said, "Are you crazy? What are you doing? You're writing to BBC. That's our enemies." And of course, this letter was interrupted. This letter was taken and given to her to
Oh, wow.
explain the whole situation.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, how I was wrong.
Amazing. So did you ever see her again or talk to her again?
No, no, no.
It's a shame.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that was that was a funny story.
Hmm. Definitely. Before we go on, I want to tell you all about a new podcast from Tenderfoot TV called To Die For. Imagine you were a fly on the wall at a dinner between the Mafia, the CIA, and the KGB. That's where this unprecedented podcast begins. Brought to you by the makers of the hit podcast To Live and Die in LA, To Die For marks the first time a Russian-trained honey trap has told her story from beginning to end. Taught to seduce men for their secrets and sometimes their lives, Alia Rosa was trained to believe that her body no longer belonged to her. It belonged to the state. She was meticulously trained to be the perfect weapon, able to seduce her targets into compromising situations that have ended careers and sometimes lives. From Tenderfoot TV, the studio that brought you Up and Vanished, and To Live and Die in LA. Make sure you check out To Die For, available beginning on March 26th, wherever you get your podcasts. So the information that your father gave, those codes, you said they were good for a few days, but now, of course, he is in Soviet Union for the rest of his life. So what did he do after that? Did he have other tasks to perform?
When he was learning Russian, and they got information from different American, sources in English, and he was translating them into Russian for them. That was his first job. At the same time, he was at the college. He graduated from there. In the meantime, he was translating all the time different secret information.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, was he aware of any news from America? Because his name became very famous for a little while there in America, right after his defection?
Yeah, in news, he was always listening to the Voice of America and BBC. He was listening all the time. Only these stations he was listening. So probably, for me, I was a young fellow, and I was listening only to music.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so maybe he heard something, but as I told you, he never told me anything.
Oh, right. So did your family, you were, like you said, you were born the next year in 1949. Did your
Hmm.
family just settle into a nice routine? Like you said that you had a lot of nice belongings, nice apartment and everything. So
Yeah,
was it mostly
yeah,
just a happy, peaceful life after that?
yeah. For me, it was very good life, excellent life. When I was a little kid, everything was there. My apartment was like, as I told you, like American,
Yeah.
American country. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hard to imagine, honestly, how different that must have been, but very lucky for
yeah,
you at least.
yeah. Then I grew up, and young fellow, I started to pay attention to different things that happening outside my apartment,
Hmm.
and started to be really upset about what's going on.
Right. You only talked a little bit about yourself in the book, but I could tell that, like I said in the introduction, you left in 1990, and I could kind of tell that you were very ready to leave by then.
Yeah, I was ready to leave when I was 5 years old.
Oh, gosh.
Because I find out that the life outside our apartment is very different than in our apartment.
Hmm.
That's I don't want to live in the outside world from our apartment. I want to live in our apartment.
Oh, wow. Sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you had an incredibly unique perspective for someone born and raised there. I guess you were seeing the world unlike anyone else was, probably.
yeah, I was for all this time when I grew up and was already adult guy. I was forbidden to leave the country.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to go to see the world, but I was forbidden.
Hmm.
Only until 1989, when remember Gorbachev came to power,
Hmm.
and he opened the borders, and he let whoever wants to go go. I immediately got the suitcase, my family, and went to the United States to my aunt, to my dad's sister.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Had you seen any of your American family before that? Were they able to come
No,
visit at any point?
no, I only letters. Were receiving letters from them.
Hmm.
And I was writing also letters to my grandfather, to my grandmother, to my
Wow.
aunt. Yeah.
So, did any of them ever see your father face to face again after he left to go on
No.
his tour in Moscow?
Yeah, my grandmother. She came twice to visit him. She let her come in 1972 and in 1976. Yeah, twice she
72.
was.
Wow.
Yeah,
So she had
twice.
not seen him for like 22, no, 24 years or
Yeah,
something before that. Is that right?
yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
That must have been incredible for both of them.
yeah. It was very incredible. It was like, they were close family all the
Hmm.
time, and that's when they saw each other. It was something incredible.
I'm sure.
And I want to tell you that my grandfather died in 1971, and my grandmother was left alone. And after that, she started this process to come to see
Oh, wow.
her son. Yeah. So my grandfather never saw my son after he
Man,
defected.
that's terrible.
Mm.
Not since 1940, I guess 47 or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
47. Yeah,
Wow, until he
47.
died 20,
Mm-hmm.
was that 24 years later? My gosh.
Yeah.
And he was an army officer himself, wasn't he? So that
Yeah, he
had
was
an impact on
colonel.
his career and everything too, didn't it?
Yeah, he was a colonel in the United States Army.
Man.
He was at war with the Japan, yeah, in the Philippines. As I wrote in the book, they were in Hawaii when Hawaii was attacked by Japanese
Oh, right, right, right.
planes. Yeah, so yeah, he was an officer.
My gosh.
Mhm.
So, was your father able to, because he's in such a unique situation, was he able to make friends very easily? I mean, was he a little bit just like
No,
with you and
no,
with your mom, and that was it for most
no,
of his life?
that was it. Yeah,
Oh,
no
wow.
friends, no friends at all.
Oh my gosh.
He, yeah, he cannot do it. He would just live in his own world.
Man.
Mm.
Did did that seem to hurt him, you think, or were you and your mother, enough? Were you everything that he needed?
I cannot. He lived in himself. He
Mhm.
never shared with anything with me, with something. So it's pretty hard for me, but I understand that he was very upset that he was lonely.
Mhm.
Only my mom
Mm.
was the only person, who was with him all the time. She never worked, you know. She never went to work after they married. So she stayed at home.
Hmm. Did they have a good marriage? Were they happy with each other all of that time?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. Most of the time, yes. Hmm.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I guess no married couple is happy all of the time, of course. That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
normal,
that's
but
right. That's right.
do you
That's
think, I
right.
know you said your father was very closed off, but do you think that he understood that she had been directed to meet him? Like it had been a job for her to meet him initially?
For him, he wasn't interested in that. He fell in love with her, and he wasn't interested.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. How they met. For him, they met each other. He fell in love, and that's it.
Hmm. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. He
Well, it
never
was it
talked.
was
He
clearly
never
more than just
talked.
a job because she loved him and she stayed with him for his whole life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Unexpectedly, yeah. She said she will never do that, but somehow it
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would
Mhm.
have been terrible if if they'd split up very quickly after he had defected, of course.
Yeah.
That would have been even
Oh,
worse.
yeah. Yes. For him, it would be
Mhm.
such a blow. No. Yeah.
So, Vlad, did your family get to know any other Western defectors while you were
Yeah.
there, other English speakers?
Yeah. Yeah. We met a lot of defectors because, as I understand, this task of my family, of my mom and my dad, was to meet these defectors so they will feel comfortable. Somebody is from their country or English speaking people whom they can meet in this world, in absolutely another world. So we met a lot of people, and as I wrote in the book, we met twice Lee Harvey Oswald
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he was
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah
Did you meet
when
him? Do you remember him at all?
I remember only one thing. I was like 10 years old, and I was all in rock and roll music at that time. We were arguing who is singing this song, Rock Around the Clock. I thought it was Elvis Presley, and he explained to me that it wasn't Elvis Presley.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. What
yeah,
an incredible memory. What an incredible meeting that
yeah.
was.
That's why I remember only because of that. Because of this argument.
Hmm. So how did that happen? Was Lee Harvey Oswald sent to your
Yeah,
parents'
yeah,
apartment just to hang out with other Americans by the KGB?
yeah.
Sent him there?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. That's right. They
Wow.
were
Did your
sending
father
like
like him? I've
like
heard he was an unusual guy. He was a strange guy,
uh,
kind of, right?
yeah, very strange guy. Very strange guy. The other guys, the other guys also pretty strange. They were drinking a lot, and my mom didn't like that. Whenever they come in KGB, they brought a bunch of alcohol with them, because they knew that these guys like alcohol.
Hmm.
That was not very good for my mom. But Lee Harvey Oswald was different. Yeah, very different. I think he never drank.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think he was a sober guy.
Hmm.
But he was like in his mind. He was always with this woman, some kind of a woman, much older than him, who was supervising him.
Oh, really? Not like a girlfriend? You mean like a
No,
supervisor?
no, 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 like supervisor from
Huh.
KGB.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, as I wrote in the book, he had no secrets, and he was like a common guy who wanted to defect, who asked for political asylum in Russia, and they cannot figure out why he wants this political asylum because he never was some kind of a communist ideas. He never had these ideas. That's why they rejected at first, and he wanted to commit suicide.
Hmm.
So in his hotel room, but he was saved by this woman because she was somewhere near. She came very quickly to his rescue. And maybe he was playing with it. I don't know. But actually, the difference between him and all the other defectors was that he never gave his passport to the United States Embassy. My dad gave his passport after that. He wasn't considered an American citizen.
Right, right, right.
You know, all the others also gave their passport and they were not American citizens. But
Hmm.
he never gave this passport. Never gave this passport, and he left the Soviet Union with American passport, and there was no problems for him to go back to the United States.
Yeah, that was very, very odd to me. And I know of course, it's something that people have discussed a million times
Yeah,
since then, but just a very unusual story all around. Did your father say anything about him after he left? I got the
no,
impression he didn't really like Lee very much.
no, no. He never talked about it to me.
Hmm.
His his any other things,
Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible that you have that memory with him, though. That really is amazing.
yeah. So that's what happened. After that, they met one more time. Lee Harvey Oswald was sent to Minsk, to the Belarusia, and to work at the factory where they were making TV sets. And my dad was specialist in TV sets, and he was sent to Minsk, like a business trip. I don't know, but I think he met Lee Harvey Oswald there to find out what his intentions were.
Really, really.
Yeah,
Okay, so someone told your father to ask Lee some questions.
yeah,
Then,
I think
wow,
so.
wow, wow.
My
Oh
dad
man.
never. Yeah,
Okay, I'm sure some people would be very, very interested to know what those questions were.
yeah. But after that, Lee Harvey Oswald left to the United States.
Hmm.
He
Yeah, I
took
know his.
his he took his some Russian wife with him.
Right, what was her name? Is it Marina? I think
Marina.
Marina
Yeah,
Oswald.
Marina.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Marina. Hmm.
Okay. I don't know his story nearly as well as so many other people do, but it's hard not to know some of it at least. Of course, it's such a big
Hmm.
event, such a pivotal character in American history and world history, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Incredible. So
incredible. So,
your father, you said he learned. I guess he learned at the school how to work on TV sets, or is that something he already knew?
no, he learned in school. He learned in
Okay.
school. He was a very good specialist in TV.
Okay.
So
Did that become like a career for him, like something he did for
yeah,
years on
yeah,
end?
yeah, yeah. That was a career for him. That was a full-time job. But in the meantime, he was always doing translations.
Oh, sure. Yeah, always
Hmm.
useful. Always useful.
Yeah, he was working like 20 hours a day
Oh my gosh.
because he didn't have friends. He didn't have anything.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
actually he never watched TV.
Really?
As as funny
Oh gosh.
sounds, but he wasn't interested in Russian life really.
Oh wow. That's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. If you ask him, "Did you see this movie? Did you read this book?" No, never.
Hmm.
Only American books. Yeah, Norman
Wow.
Mailer. One of his favorite authors was Norman
Mhm.
Mailer.
My
That's
goodness.
what.
So when you say
Mhm.
he worked on the TVs, was he working on like developing technology, or was he working like on the assembly line at the
No,
factory?
developing technology.
Okay, I see.
Hmm.
I see.
He was one of the guys who created color TV in Russia.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
My gosh, he left his mark in so many different ways then, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was very good at that.
Hmm. I know, of course, that you left in, you said 89 or 90. How did things change for your
89.
father and mother, though, after the government turnover in 91, I guess?
Well, at that time, everything changed in the Soviet Union. I left
Hmm.
Soviet Union still, not Russia, but Soviet Union. But everything was changed. They were letting people out when I left that did nothing to them, like it was supposed to be.
Hmm.
Actually, I left for a visit,
Hmm.
for a 10-day visit. But then when I came to America, I asked for political asylum.
Hmm. And so that's how you were able to stay, was because of political asylum?
Yeah, I was trying to get a political asylum, but actually they refused to do that because of my dad.
Hmm.
They still knew that my dad was a defector, and they rejected it for a couple of years. But then my wife, she's a Jewish girl, and she applied for political asylum as a minority. You know,
Mm,
the
okay.
Jews were persecuted at that time in Russia.
Oh, right, right, right. Okay, I
Yeah,
see.
so, yeah,
Okay. Okay, I see.
yeah.
So you were able to stay, and since of course they knew who your father was, were you ever interviewed by anyone about your father? Were they curious what he was doing now, for example, or was it too far in the past?
It was too far in the past now.
Okay,
Hmm.
I see. Did your father consider, or did he try to come back to the US at any point?
No, no, never. He knew exactly that he would be in prison. It's like,
Sure.
he will never be pardoned.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, he would definitely have been arrested
Yeah,
regardless of his
yeah,
age or
yeah.
anything, I think,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. There was another case that just reminded me of it, really, of a man who defected to North Korea from the
Uh-huh,
army,
uh-huh,
and he came back after 30 years, and he
uh-huh,
had a light sentence, but he was still arrested and he still was put on trial
uh-huh,
after, 30 years in North Korea, which was
uh-huh.
significantly worse than what your father had to deal with, of course.
Yeah, mhm.
So to me that was kind of punishment enough already, being in North
Mhm.
Korea, but
Yeah,
they don't forget. They don't forget, certainly.
yeah, they don't forget.
So he remained in Russia for the rest of his life then? I mean, did you go back and
Mm.
forth yourself? Did
Yeah,
you have a chance
I
to see
went
him more?
yeah, I started to go there in 2001 for the first time I
Oh,
went.
wow.
Yeah, after almost 11 years, I went to see my dad. My mom died in 1997, but in 1996 she visited us here.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she came, and I told her if something happened to my dad, she were welcome to come here and live here. But different thing happened.
Mhm.
Yeah. So she died in 1997, and from 1997 and my dad died in 2020.
2020. Oh
2020.
gosh.
Yeah,
Okay, that was not very
yeah,
long ago then. Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
He was 92.
92. My gosh.
Hmm.
Okay. Was
Yeah.
your mother when she came to was she able to meet some of your father's family then
Yeah,
besides
of
his own
course.
mother? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She was very popular here.
Oh
She's
gosh. Yeah,
very
I bet they
good.
wanted to meet her so badly.
Yeah. They wanted to see who did it.
Yeah. How did that go? Was there any tension or anything, or were they just happy
No,
to meet this woman that had been a part of his life
no,
for so long?
no tension because it was a long time ago. So she was all right here.
My gosh.
Yeah,
That's
she
incredible.
lived in our house. We already had a house here, so she lived in our house
Oh, okay.
for
Oh,
a
so she
couple of
stayed with you
months.
for a long time.
Yeah,
I
couple of
see.
months. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Hmm.
Good. So you were able to go back and visit with your father leading
Yeah,
up to
I
his
was
death?
visiting every
Okay.
year, once a year, sometimes twice a year. I
Hmm.
was visiting like for 10 days.
Okay.
Mm.
Good. And you had a good relationship with him at the end?
Yeah, we had always good relations.
Okay, good,
You know,
good.
he taught me a lot of things. Like he was all in sports, and
Mhm.
he taught me a bunch of things: how to play basketball, how to play different games. So I'm very happy with him about this.
Good, good, good.
Mm.
How is he remembered in Russia? Has anything been written about him that you know of, like any books or TV series, anything like that at all talking about
No,
his life?
no, no, nothing.
Did he receive any like awards or anything like that maybe, as a defector?
No, he received awards only because of his work,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
an engineer. Yeah,
Wow.
but nothing yet, nothing. Everything changed after Soviet Union collapsed. If Soviet Union existed, maybe they will write some books about him, but
Mhm.
now it's no interest at all.
Yep. Yep. That's unfortunate, but I have to tell you, Vlad, I'm very glad that you wrote about him because your book was
Mm.
very, very, very fascinating. It's very readable and it's very relatable because it's
Mm.
the story of a father written by the son.
Yeah.
And I read quite a bit for this podcast. I read a lot of different books, and yours
Mm.
I thought was one of the most heartfelt that I've read in
Mm.
quite some time because you're so close to that story, the story of your mother and your father and their love and how it changed everything for both of them. So very, very
Mhm.
fascinating story for the
Thank you.
listeners out there. If you want to pick it up after you're finished listening, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's on Amazon, like Vlad said a minute ago, and the title
Mm.
is Stationed in Moscow for Good: A Tale of Love and Peril in the Cold War by Vladimir McMillin. Vlad, do you have any other thoughts about him? Do you plan to write anything else about him in the future or about your life growing up in the Soviet Union?
I have a bunch of ideas, but it's very expensive to publish a book if you don't have sponsors.
Hmm.
It's like, for example, this book, I paid $5,000 to publish it.
Oh wow.
Okay. The selling was pretty good in the beginning, but actually I got like maybe $3,000. So you see, I lost $2,000 on.
Oh wow.
And the same thing happened to the second book. The same thing. It was popular in the beginning, but $5,000 I paid also to publish it. So it's pretty difficult for me
Yeah,
in
I
in
understand.
retirement.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, definitely, because it is an incredibly interesting story. And hopefully a few of the listeners will pick it up as well, because of course there's quite a bit that we did not go into detail about during this discussion
but
here.
the thing is that Amazon is also not very good organization. They need money for everything. So if they need to republish this book, I need to pay like $200
Mm.
to them to publish. So in Kindle, Kindle,
Kindle, yes, yeah.
yeah, Kindle. In Kindle you can buy it, but
Hmm.
in as a book, they will charge you a lot because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't pay $200.
Yeah, that's how I got my copy. I got it on Kindle, but I would love to pick up a hardcover if I can find one.
Mm. That's difficult. Yeah, somebody got it Yeah, actually, it was like $14, but some of my friends he bought it for $40 from them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you see, they,
That happens. Yeah, sometimes I'll find a book that is so hard to find, and the seller
mhm,
knows it. They know how hard
yeah,
it is to find because they charge a lot of money for it,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and that money's not going to the author either because it's just a rare older book that's out of print now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's Amazon, of course.
Hmm. So, are you still doing any writing? Like, what do you do right now to keep busy?
Well, I'm working. I'm working at the university. I'm working in the food service.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
feeding students with food. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I
Terrific.
like it very much because I like to be among young people, and they like me. And also, they bought a bunch of my books on
Oh.
Kindle. On
Oh, wow.
Kindle.
Fantastic. That's good news.
Yeah. I'm also like my mother. Very good in communication.
Good. 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 I'm really glad to hear it. Well, I really appreciate your time tonight. This has been a really fascinating discussion, Vlad,
Mhm.
and thank you so much. So I will definitely look for your second book as well if I can find that anywhere, and I'll keep an eye out in case you decide to
Uh,
publish again.
yeah, I have it on my email. So only,
Right, right,
only.
right. Do you
Yeah.
still have a website right now or a site for your books at all for people if they want to look it up after this?
I had my site, and I have. It's also Vladimir McMillin, but another than on Facebook, there's another one.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I've
Uh,
seen your
yeah.
Facebook page, and I think
Mhm.
don't you own you? Is it Vlad McMillan or VladimirMcMillan.com? Maybe.
Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, well, we will link that up, and we'll link up the Facebook page as well in the
Yeah.
show notes in case anybody listening they want to connect with you after hearing this. But
Okay.
thanks
Mhm.
again so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Vladimir. This has been an incredible
Thank
discussion.
you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Very nice. Very nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you're interested in more of Spycraft 101, look for my page on Instagram at Spycraft 101. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll stick around because there is lots more to come.
Disclaimer: this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The stories and statements expressed herein are experiences and opinions. They may not reflect the views of the host or the production studio. It's okay if you disagree with our content. No piece of media is right for everyone. If you love Spycraft 101, please check us out online, on Instagram, on YouTube, and especially on Patreon. Thank you for listening.